landscape here is Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Coons, thank you very much for being here. The war in Ukraine, Russia, these big diplomatic ties, they can feel very remote from everyday people's lives. So I want to start really simply in big picture. What had the U.S. relationship been with regard to Russia in your time in the Senate, and how has it changed in the last few weeks?
Well, Tony, 3 years ago, 100,000 Russian troops aggressively invaded Ukraine, a peaceful, sovereign democracy in Eastern Europe. The biggest war in Europe since the Second World War, shocked and alarmed our NATO allies, most of the world, with its naked aggression. And so over the last 3 years, the United States has led a global coalition of 50 countries. The United States has been the biggest contributor to Ukraine's defense, but the other countries in combination have given more in support for refugees, more in support for Ukraine's economy, and more in support for the brave Ukrainians who have fought to push back on the largest and most sophisticated military in the world other than our own. So whether it's at the United Nations, at the G7, or other places around the world, our efforts, led by President Biden at the time, to impose sanctions on Russia, to hold them accountable for atrocities and war crimes, and to support the Ukrainians in their brave fight for freedom, has defined U.S., Russian, and U.S. European relations for the last 3 years. So now President Trump seems determined to take it in a different direction, probably best exemplified by the UN vote this week, where on the one side you had Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, a whole group of countries that we don't typically align with. And on the other side, all of our NATO allies, all of the Western democracies, countries like Japan, Korea, Australia, that have long been our closest partners in the world. It's a pretty striking change in direction for an American government. So, Senator, all of us here in America, whether we realize it or not, have benefited over our lifetimes from relative stability and world peace post-World War II. Yes, there have been conflicts, but we haven't had anything on that scale. That order that developed after World War II, which involves NATO and our European allies holding Russia, which became an adversary at bay, are we facing the end of that order and a new order? And if we are, how worried should the average American be? Well, so that's entirely up to President Trump and the majority here in the Senate and the House. I was at a bipartisan dinner last night hosted by the Italian ambassador, where a group of Republican and Democratic senators were talking with the ambassadors from France, from the United Kingdom. And yesterday, a bipartisan group of senators met with President Macron of France. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom will be here also meeting with Trump. We are at a key turning point. Either President Trump will continue to embrace NATO, the West, our alliances that, as you say, have kept us prosperous, safe, and secure for 75 years. Or he's going to take a sharp turn and embrace the idea of spheres of influence, of imperialism, of a this is mine, that's yours approach to world affairs, where Russia gets to take Ukraine because they're bigger and stronger, China gets to take Taiwan because they're bigger and stronger, and the United States takes Greenland or the Panama Canal, as President Trump has threatened in his first month. Many of my Republican colleagues think President Trump is just blustering and bluffing, and what he's trying to accomplish is to get our European partners to spend more on their defense and to secure as good a deal as he can for Ukraine. I hope and pray that's true. But what President Trump has been doing is alarming. And I was 10 days ago at the Munich Security Conference, where his Vice President, J.D. Vance, and his Secretary of Defense made remarks and set the entire European world back on their heels as they were alarmed by his comments through his two cabinet officials who were present.
Senator, there is a lot of alarm, as you mentioned, from Democrats, from Europeans, on the president's posture toward Ukraine. But does the end goal justify the means? If this war winds down, is it all worth it?
Look, it's a very different way to accomplish the goal of a just and sustainable peace in Ukraine and to get our European partners to step up and invest more in security. There was a dramatic increase in European contributions to European security under the Biden administration. And that was done not with threats and blustering, not with, hey, a really great country you got there, Ukraine. We'd like all of your minerals in order to continue to provide security for you, but instead by collective leadership. President Trump has a very different style, very different values. But frankly, if this ends well, I think we will all be relieved. But the last few weeks have been exhausting and have undermined the confidence in our leadership that our partners have. I have to mention one of the first things President Trump did was to shut down foreign aid. The investments we make in combating human trafficking and extremism, containing pandemics and feeding the hungry around the world, the abrupt closing of almost all of our activity around the world that's humanitarian in nature has cost us a lot of credibility and hurt some of our key relationships. And these steps with regards to Ukraine are making it even harder and straining some of our most trusted relationships that have helped keep us safe and prosperous for generations.
Senator, thank you so much for your time. Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, we appreciate it.